get up. And I want you all to find a friend in the room, somebody you don't know yet, and tell them a bit about your last data project. 5 minutes, 2 minutes each, more or less. Come on, get up, talk to each other. What?
What was your data product? No, you
Data
have the
product.
microphone. Yes, yes, yes. I think the microphone is more powerful.
Sure. Is this connected in the back? I think so, no? Yeah, now it is. Now I can hear myself. Ah, beautiful. Every time I do this, I have faith in the humanity and the future of data storytelling and communication in general. It's great. So you have heard each other's stories. We're going to try to find the key elements of every data story. So let's see if we can put it all together. That's the question I want to pose to yourself. Which elements do you need for a data story? And let's start here. Tell me a bit about your data story. Just the introduction, a few lines.
It was about the switch from an ETL tooling called Matillion to DBT.
Right,
And why
perfect.
I made that switch as
Okay.
as product owner.
Perfect. It's a change that you had to do from ETL to DBT, and you had to make that change, okay? Already there are a couple of elements that we're going to need for every story. Can anybody guess what those elements are? And just to give you a bit of a clue, they all start with C, maybe C and 1D. So what elements do we have? Change. And the way I like to talk about change is because you had to fight something, in this case, this challenge that he had. And the way I call that in general, because it's a very story term, is conflict, right? And it is a challenge. I assume it was a challenge. I assume it wasn't easy at all. And it is okay to talk about conflict, and we're going to see how we speak about conflict in data stories in a good way. So, you know, we are not dramatic, we don't upset people, but we need that. Now, what else do we have? What other elements starting with C? Context. I'm not going to reveal it, but that's exactly, absolutely the last one. So I just don't want to reveal the others, but spot on. I call it context as well. What else? Coverage of what?
The whole picture,
Of the whole picture. And what's in that picture?
different kind of visualization and data.
And data, exactly. So I call it content, data, however you want to call it. Of course, the type of content that we use in data storytelling is data. We need that. And we're missing one that it's so obvious that always is the last one to come up.
Consumer?
No, but very close. The consumer is a type of? Individual. Yes. But you said I had to do this thing. You were, in that case, the character of that story. So this is what we need. We need conflict, we need character, we need content or data. I just put it 4 C's to make it more memorable, but if you want to put a D, that's fine. And finally, we need context. And we talk about the audience in that case. And if you hear people talking about presentations in data storytelling or in any other area, they always say, Juan, always start with the audience. The audience is the most important thing. Context is king. And I am 10% enthusiastic when they say that and 90% annoyed because it's an advice that doesn't follow up. They just leave it there and it's like, yeah, but what do I do with this? So I've thought a lot about this, and I would like to ask you some questions about how we approach our audience. First of all, I want to challenge that assumption. When you prepare a data presentation, when you have to prepare something for management, for your team, do you start your process considering an audience? Is that the first thing that comes to mind, or do you start with something else? I want opinions. You can talk. With the content, right? Because? Absolutely. It is in your head. It's what you work with. It's what you know about, right? I mean, if they tell me, oh, you have to do a presentation for your team. Okay, good, good. Okay, the next question is like, what's about finance? I don't know anything about finance. I can start with my audience all you want. I don't have my content, right? I need to know what projects I can talk about, right? What I have worked on, what I have expertise on. And from there, I'm going to have a pool of things, right? And then comes the next question, which hopefully the audience, the answer is obvious by now. Should we select different content for different audiences? I see some heads. Yes, you can verbalize it. Let me hear it. Yes, thank you, thank you. Okay, this is where we start working with the audience. We have a presentations. I have my presentations. I can talk about this. I can talk about sci-fi. I can talk about things. But they told me you have to go to the GoData Festival. I know what to talk about. And then I can focus on my audience once I have the content. Next question. Should we adapt the level of technical detail depending on our audience? Some notes again? Yes, thank you. Oh, yeah, we're getting the energy. Finally, Friday afternoon. Yes, but here's the thing I found. Sometimes we think technical colleagues, I'm going to go all medieval on the data formula structure of that. And unless your data colleagues work exactly in the same thing, they also get lost. And then you go and say, I'm going to talk to a business audience, so I'm just going to remove all the mention to data to tools. But sometimes the business audience needs that as well. So the answer is yes, but it's also much less than you would think, right? If you have a presentation that focuses on the business problem, talks a bit about the data technology that you're using, about the challenges that you have, and then you make it interactive with the audience like we're doing, that can go a long way. And then the adaptation, sure, you can put a bit more technical detail for your colleagues, and you can put a bit less for the business audience. And finally, should we change our presentation depending on whether we send it or we present it live? Yes, please yes, but do you actually do it? Because I see so many people who say yes, but then they don't do it, right? And we end up with these presentations with very, very long columns of text that either you read out loud, which takes time, or you don't read at all. And it's like, yeah, I'm going to show you this, but I'm not going to read it. How often have you heard that? Because I do so many times. And it's like, if you're not going to read it, don't show me. Because then I'm going to read it. And you're talking about something else. And now I have conflicting attention. Right? So you see that everything I put on the screen, first I read with you, I'm with you. Okay, have you read it? Have you all cool? Okay, now let's talk. You have to direct your attention a bit. So I would like to say that for me, starting with the audience, it's more about when you present, being here, make the people talk, be them interaction, be kind to them. But I wanted to make it more data specific. So my tip number one is this. Treat the members of your audience as you would treat ChatGPT. This came to me this morning. Because, when I present to my colleagues, I present like this. I ask them questions. I want to know what they say. I'm interested. I have follow-ups. And sometimes I have to tell them, dude, you're hallucinating a bit. And other times I have to tell them, please summarize. Come on. Faster meetings, please. All right. So just keep it in mind. Just like talk to your audience. Let them talk. Let them bring the attention. Okay? Now, let's talk a bit about the second C, which is character, right? Sometimes the most obvious one, right? And, got the introduction from Diego, thank God, because sometimes I don't even have that. Sometimes says I'm a data trainer by morning, a sci-fi writer by night, and sometimes I have a life in the afternoon, and that's why I'm here today. But actually, when I was talking to people at lunch, they didn't know that Xebia does courses. We teach courses. They are on our website. So I feel like we've had so many consultants that, just a reminder, Xebia teaches courses. And about the characters that we use in our data story, normally, it's quite a few obvious choices. So let's see if we can put it all together. What typical characters would you have in your stories? What do you think? Who could be the character, the protagonist of your data stories? The developer and the client, right? So the developer would be the person who's doing the project. The person normally who's presenting. Normally, the character is the person who's presenting. And that's okay. We need somebody to relate to. So you can say, hey, I went through these struggles. And this is how we solve them. how I solve them, how my team solve them. So actually, I'm already giving a lot away. It can be you, it can be your team, and as you very well said, it can be your client. Because we want to follow the perspective of the client. What are they going to need? What data do they look at? What are we going to feed to them as they go along? Any other suggestions for possible characters that you can use?
Characters that are in the data, like clients or users or...
Right, characters in the data. Yeah, so clients would be a specific one. End users would be a very good one. I like that. Sometimes I even make data as a character because we kind of follow in the journey. So I just even remove myself and just, the poor data, it was so dirty, but we got it clean. No, sometimes it's too much. But character is a simple thing in data storytelling. In fiction writing is something very powerful, but in business you just need to know which one it is. So tip number 2, choose a character to your story. It can be your audience in the sense that sometimes it's okay to facilitate a session, right? We have a lot of presentations in which we bring the information and we say, I did this, and sometimes it's okay to let the people bring the projects themselves. So, if you like this tip, great. If you don't like it, even better, because we're going to talk about conflict now. And conflict, what is conflict when we talk about data storytelling? Is it something like this? This is when the last time we developed a DBT project in our office. This is how we ended up. It's not about that. It's not about telling crazy stories. It's about the moment we start arguing about what we do with our data, the moment we push agendas in meeting, we are conflict. We have conflict between ourselves, between the humans, and we have conflict with the data. There are things that are difficult to do, right? So let me give you some simple examples of things that can happen, conflicts that you can have. It can be that our data platform cannot scale. We have that with some clients. They're at some point they saturate, so we need to change the data platform completely. It can be that we need to migrate a whole data infrastructure. We did that with Gumtree because they had the legal requirements. It can be that our competitor is using a new recommender system, so we need to develop and we need to catch up. Or it can be that some of our accounts are not profitable, so we need to rethink that. Now, let me get you a bit more on board with this. Can you let me know more examples of data conflicts, data problems you have encountered in your projects? Yes? Single source of truth is one of my favorite conflicts. We have them all the time. We talk a lot about it when we use DBT, when we use data modeling. Which approach do you use to solve that? Yeah, it's okay. It's an unfinished story. It's like we're still in development. Okay. Other conflicts that you find. No? Somebody? No conflicts that you have found? One more.
I like when you look at the data and say, yeah, it's nice that the data says this, but I know from experience that it works another way.
Also interesting. Right, so let me just summarize for the recording. So the data says this, and it's very interesting, but I know that it works another way. Right. Trusting data. So interesting, because it can be justified sometimes that there's something that is missing. And other times it can be bias and assumptions. This is what we call, no, I have this gut feeling, but that gut feeling is assumption, biases, and other things that we try to fight with data. Another example. Say again? Resistance to change is a very human conflict. Stakeholder management is the key to that, or how you work with people. It happens all the time. Indeed. Good. It's good because we have data problems, we have something in the mix, in the middle, and we have purely human problems. There's a bit of everything. Now, the one tip I want to give you about this is very simple, but it's very important, is have a file somewhere with your ideas. How many of you have a note taken up or something like that, where they take notes? Okay. Not as many as I thought, but it's okay. And how many of you from those keep a log of ideas of cool things that occur to you while at work? One person? Good. That's one more than I expected. It's great. This is something that really comes from creative writing, and creative writers are really good at that. You will see them with their notebooks, with their phones, with anything they have at hand, because they want to have more ideas all the time. It's very valuable. And we do have those ideas in business, but we don't do anything with them. And I'm always like, it's such a shame. Why are we not using it? You have an idea in the middle of a meeting, just write it down somewhere and come back to the meeting. I always like to say that without being too airy-fairy, hopefully, but creativity is a bit like a well, in the sense that you take out a bit of water, then new water comes to replenish it. You don't use the water well, eventually it dries out, right? So when we have ideas and when you start writing them down, you will see that, oh, I had a nice idea, let me write it down. And then that makes sure that it's safe and it's out of your head, so new ideas can come in. And this circulation is very important because I have all these great ideas I have all these bad ideas about data projects, but I write them down. That means they are out of my head. So I leave the space for free, and then at some point, hopefully 1 in 20 is a good idea. It's okay, good, this I can take to my team. So we have some ideas, we have some little conflicts that we can use here and there. Let me do a progression of the ideas. Let's see how, okay, we have one first idea, something we want to do with a project, but how do we take it further? Can I have a volunteer for this? Tell me about a data project. Not everyone at once. All right. You were quite participating, so I'm going to go with you. And don't worry, I'm going to be very kind unless you're wrong, so it's going to be fine. Tell us a bit about a data project, and I'm interested in knowing the different steps of the data project that you took.
Okay, data project I just told a friend here, new friend, is I worked at a company where the board asked to assess the data literacy within the company. So we created a list of 25 questions having to do with data that people in the departments answered. And then at some time we had a lot of data and we're going like, okay, how do we make this tangible? So we came up with a spider web on 5 data angles, stuff like your infrastructure, your visualizations, the quality of your data, etc. And we also asked, where do you want to be in 2 years' time?
Right.
So you have a spider web with a small circle, that's what we are now, and you have a larger circle, that's where we want to be.
Okay.
And that spider web was the key to get people engaged and also to focus them on the gaps where they need to work on.
Beautiful. Okay. Did it almost perfectly. You did a lot of things right, and you did them probably unconsciously, unless you know about the rule that I'm going to talk about. So you used a few times the word, so we did this. So there was a problem with this, so we look for that. That's very story. It helps a lot with the communication. We have problems, so we did this, right? What's not so much a good word? Well, we wanted to collect data, and then we went and asked people, and then we had too many, and then I killed myself. It's just too much sometimes, right? So let's see how do we do this progression. Let's say that we want to create this dynamic. So the so is the solution. The problem is a word that we use every day, but this happened. Some people, they get to the point like, no, I don't use but in my emails because it's confrontational and all that. It's okay. It's a problem. The problem is to get stuck in the problem, but it's not to point out the problem. So it goes a bit like this. Let's say I wanted data, but I didn't get access, so I killed myself. Not a great story, basically because I cannot tell it afterwards, so not great. Let's see if we can improve this a little bit. I wanted data, but I didn't get access, so I killed my boss. It's an improvement, at least from my perspective. I can tell the story in prison, so it's great. Let's improve it just a bit more. I wanted data, but I didn't get access, so I call IT, and then they give me access. Simple, right? Is it really simple? Is it really the end of the story? No. I see people shaking no. Why? Why is not the end of the story? Yes, you.
Actually, it's not that simple when you call the IT and data access.
First of all, thank you. Thank you for that. It's not as simple when you call IT. No, it's not like that wonderful number that you can call, like in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and they give you the answer. No, it's not like that. Right? But then what happens once you get the data?
You have the data and how you can use that, leverage that to solve this problem.
Right. That's a whole new challenge, right? I had the data, but now I have to do something with it. I had to clean them, I had to analyze it, I need to classify, I need to do feature engineering, I had to do a lot of everything. So it works like this. You're going to have another problem. I get the data. Good. But then it was very dirty data, so I cleaned it. But then there were some features missing for the predictive modeling, so I did feature engineering. But then the predictive modeling wasn't very good, so I tried neural network and random forest as well to see how it was going. And we had this kind of progression that we call the but and so rule. This has been around all sorts of storytelling for many years. The creators of South Park popularized it around 2015, so I want to give credit for that. They call it the but and therefore rule. It's exactly the same. And it works like this. If you look at the conflict or the level of action in a story with respect to time, you'll see that first there's a little problem, right? That's the but. So you solve it, and you try to push the problem down, but not fully, because you're still in the project, you haven't finished. So comes a new problem, so you solve it, comes a new problem, so you solve it. So any kind of little story, however short it is in a project, is a very healthy microstructure to use, the but and so rule, to say, hey, we have this problem, so we look at the solution. If we only present problems, that's when it looks like we are complaining, we're just pointing at things that are wrong. But if we actually do something about it, people want to hear about it. Hey, you had this difficulty, but you did that. Nice. Well done. Gets you credit. Shows that you're trying. That's what we see in fiction stories as well. It's like there was a hero that had to cross the whole Middle Earth, but no, he just gave up, and that was it. That was the story. It's like, great. No, they had to try. They had to do something, right? And this type of structure was really, really nicely with data, especially when you have a lot of data and you try to go layer by layer deeper down. So let me show you what we would do in a typical data presentation. Let's say that we wanted to sell courses and the target for this quarter was 2 million. But actually, the result that we got was 2.5 million, so very good. But actually, the distribution was not homogeneous depending on the countries, right? There was actually a big concentration in the Netherlands. But even within the same country, even within the Netherlands, we sold so much, there was still a heavy polarization towards, let's say, data visualization and storytelling. So you see, this kind of but and so rule is really useful to get deeper and deeper into the data, right? So you have a level of data. The global sales, good. But we want to go into details, and we see the country. But within the best-selling country, we want to see the courses. You can even take it further. But within this course, we want to see the distribution of ages. Who are we selling to? Right? So this kind of structure is very, very useful to progress when you're using data and when you have a lot of layers. Now, that's my tip number 4. Articulate the conflict in your data story with the but and so rule. And additionally, I've shown you something that I really like doing, and I see very few people doing, which is I show the graph one part at a time, first the axis, then the other axis, then one part of the graph, and I keep building up. That principle I call building up, not breaking down, right? How often have you seen large data sets thrown there to the screen? I say, oh, let me break it down. You don't have to read everything. Let me guide you. Why? Why don't you start small so people can catch up? Why don't you start small so you can build up slowly? And talking about data, it's going to be the last part. Sometimes we end up with something that we all have to present sometimes. It's the worst thing for presenting because it's very heavy in information. It's tables. Tables, spreadsheets, data sets, however you want to call them. It's a lot of information, right? If you have to present it, the only way I have to present this is like, I really have to be intense in the presentation. You have to say, guys, look at me. Like, hey, I'm here. This is the ID, this is the product ID, this is present. So I know exactly where their attention is. Because otherwise, if I let them read the table, it's like, okay, they're gone now. They're going in. Somebody's looking at the value. Some people is looking at the complaint status. They're gone. So how do we do this? How do we try to make a story out of this or something that people can relate to? Well, I had a very similar data set to this. This is a mock data set I created, but it's inspired by a real case of coaching that I had. And as somebody who was coaching them with this, I came in and my first job was trying to understand what they were doing in the team, right? So they were first explaining it to me. And the title, which I don't remember for a good reason, was something like general status of complaints across the board. It's like all generic global words until somebody had the brilliant idea and told me, Juan, this is about a guy in Chicago having a problem with the electric razor. He calls us and we follow the complaint. It's like, thank you, that I understand. What that guy was doing was focusing on only one row and describing the evolution of that row. Right, so it's much more powerful to give a clear example of the one row of the table rather than to throw the table at once. Why? Because the moment he tells me that, I know that somewhere else in the table, there is a woman in Seattle having a problem with an electric toothbrush. If you give me a clear example, I can come up with similar things. But if you throw the table at once and I need to grasp all the concepts, it gets a bit tricky. So this is what we call illustration by example. The other option that you have when you're trying to break down a table, well, we do it by rows. Could you also do it by columns? You could. In this case, what we're doing is we do a representation of the prices of the items, right? You would have a distribution. You will have a simple histogram, bar graph, however you want to call it. We cannot do that for all the columns. We need to select a bit. But as I say, data storytelling is about getting these small victories. You cannot do everything at once. So that's my tip. That's analysis of one category. And my tip, which is 5.2, because it's pretty much the same as the other, break down the tables before the presentation, then build them up with the audience. Right? So make sure that you focus on one aspect of it, and from there, you can build up. So I would like to leave you with this, the 4 C's that we're going to use for any data story. We need a conflict, we need a character, and we need, of course, some data and some interaction with the audience. And then one of the most powerful tools that I have for presenting is the but and so rule, following that dynamic, that progression of different data projects. And then once you have talked about it, once people know all the different parts, then that's okay. If at the end you want to do like this and have one final slide to put everything together, that's okay. But by now, you don't even need to read it because you have digested them, all of them, one by one. Thank you very much. Questions? Come on. Let's have some conflict here. Yes, thank you.
What's your opinion of pie charts?
What? Pie charts?
What is your opinion of pie charts?
And let me put this delicately. If you put it in your mouth, don't put it in your charts. Works for everything. So yeah, pie charts, donut charts, like that. There is only one case in which pie charts can be okay with one. There's only 2 categories, and one of them is much smaller than the other one. So it's kind of like you see like the overall effect. And sometimes you need pie charts for variation because you've done so many bar graphs or so many bar charts that you need just the one. But yeah, I avoid them like the plague. So yeah. More questions?
How about talking about conclusion up front, betting on your public? Because management is always only focusing on the 2 slides and the other ones they don't interest in.
I love that question. This is actually something we discuss in the course all the time. I think Simon Sinek popularizes a lot is starting with the why. No, you want to start with the why, or the situation of management. They are very busy. They come. They are bored. It's after lunch. It's like I just want to hit them with a 2x4. Like I just want to give them something powerful. If you see that you're in that kind of situation, you can start by the conclusion. However, sometimes we overdo that, and there's just a natural choice that if you have a good data conflict, right, that already drives the why straight away. If you tell me that we have a cash flow, that we've been looking at the cash flow, the data of cash flow, and we have 3 months left of cash, otherwise the company goes bankrupt, you don't need to tell me the why. I get it, right? And you better guide me through the solution of that conflict. So sometimes if you're able to narrow down the conflict in an honest way, like this is the difficulty that we have, that can also grab attention. So if you're really sure that you cannot trust the attention of your audience, start with the why. But in other cases, allow yourself to say, I'm going to build up because this is a good problem to start. And then you go from there. Good question. Yes?
So, how would you deal with an audience that is very likely to constantly ask questions, like about, you're into slide 1 and they're already asking things without sort of very harshly constantly saying, no questions until I'm done?
Okay, so I like questions in general. And I think, you cannot ask this from everyone. I think it's something that even people who present every day or like as part of the job, they don't do it. But there is this principle called being over-prepared and under-structured, right? Meaning you can talk about many things, but even within the presentation, you have hidden slides that you can pull off depending on what they ask. You know where it can go. That's a lot of preparation, but that's the perfect idea because you know where it's going and you have different options. Now, if you have a lot of questions and it's just a little presentation that you did, you haven't prepared it like it's your master thesis, you can say, hey, let's put a pin on that, let me continue. That's okay, we can discuss it later. It's a very polite way that I've seen many people do. It's like, that's a very good question, I'm gonna tackle it at the end. Oh, good. And I kind of share your worry in the sense that I like interaction. I love people coming in and out, bringing their own experience. But I like to be in control of the direction of the session. In the sense like I have done my preparation. I want to give it to my audience what I have. So I had that direction in mind, right? So I've seen some speakers that they allow so many contributions. And sometimes a person, especially normally it's one person that talks too much and asks too much, gets too much of attention. And it's good to learn to direct it, to be gently assertive and say, hey, that's good, okay, let me continue, because you have to at least direct where things are going. You don't have to say everything, and it's great when people bring their opinions, but you need to create a flow. So it's a lot of things in that question, but I think creating a flow, like being in charge basically of the direction, and then, yeah, having options depending on what the audience asks. Yeah. Okay. Anything else? More questions? All right. Well,
I think we're good, Juan. Thank you for all your energy and a great presentation.
Thank you.